Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour with Jared Anderson and David Weiss. If head trauma had a podcast, it might sound like this. Today's guest is a local Utah YouTuber. His channel is about tools, and he's taken it a little political. He's going to try to help young lads get involved with construction and tool use and things like that. Introducing the Toolbreaker. Mr. Toolbreaker, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Man, sure, absolutely. So I'm the Toolbreaker Mike Dean, local contractor here in Utah, and third generation contractor, and new YouTuber, relatively new to the YouTube universe. So I'm just really honored that you guys seen my stuff, liked it, and asked me to come on your show. It's actually the first time anybody's ever done that. So yeah, it's really cool, man. And all your viewers, listeners, and everybody on Facebook, YouTube, just happy to be here, share some knowledge, some thoughts, maybe learn some stuff.
Yeah. So you're a contractor. What made you, what gave you the idea to, do this, do a YouTube about building stuff and working with tools?
Yeah, man. Really it comes down to a couple of factors. One being that I'm third generation. So my grandfather was a contractor, my father's a contractor. And so I learned from those guys, and I learned from a bunch of the older generations about construction. My grandfather, for example, he could build a house from the foundation to that final, nail in the roofing shingle all by himself. And it's kind of a skill set and a mentality that is very rare that I'm seeing nowadays, especially with the youth and the young boys and teenagers and young men that are in the next generations that are coming up. And as a general contractor myself, I have seen the struggle of trying to get people into the industry. A scary fact right now is that we are 1.5 million people short in the skilled trades in the United States for what we need. And that's why we are always in a housing crisis, because we just can't keep up with demand, because we just don't have the labor. And an even more scary fact is that for every 3 contractors that retire or leave the trades, we only have 1 coming back in to replace them. And in 10 years, we are set to lose 1/3 of our workforce in the skilled trades. That's electricians, plumbers, HVAC guys, carpenters, flooring guys, painters, roofers. All of those, 1/3 of our workforce is 55 or older right now, and they will all be retiring and leaving the trades in the next 10 years. And never before have we encountered that depth of a labor shortage in such a critical industry. And so, I did everything that I could do as a general contractor, trying to, give good wages and bonuses and all this, and I still couldn't recruit people, and it's just been really, really difficult. So I thought, what's lacking and what has changed in the United States over the past 20 years is, one, the public education system has pretty much annihilated any incentive for a young person, boy or a girl, to get into the skilled trades industry. Shop classes have been cut out, woodworking classes have been cut out. And so we're not putting that emphasis on building things with your hands anymore. And it's really just decimated our workforce. And so either we're going to have to import a whole bunch of Chinese laborers in 10 years to, replace everybody, or we better start doing something to encourage our kids to pick up those nails and those screw guns and those power tools and start building stuff, or we're going to be in trouble. So that was kind of the impetus to really get into YouTube and just start sharing some of my knowledge, trying to make it fun. I'm still trying to find my voice, so they say in YouTube universe. And what is my channel all about? Well, it's about tools. That's the primary thing. And I want to make tools like cool and interesting. I want to do reviews on tools. for DIYers, for people that are getting into it, for pros. I mean, I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on tools, some of which I've regretted, and I wished, I had watched a review on it, an honest review, not just a paid one. And so then the other thing is, teaching tips and tricks. Well, how do you, set baseboards? How do you frame a wall? How do you lay a foundation? How do you do this or that? How do you paint properly? And then that way, that skills that my grandfather and my father taught me, it's getting out there to a broader audience. And maybe some kid sitting on a couch watching YouTube, wondering what he's going to do with his life, is going to be like, man, that looks pretty cool. Maybe I should give that a shot. And they call up their local carpenter and say, hey, I want to be an apprentice. So it's kind of the reason for doing it. It's the hope of doing it. And then the second part of it, really, the whole premise of being a man in the United States, I feel, is under attack. Like, if you have a beard, if you drive a big, Ford Raptor like I do or something, like there's something inherently wrong with you for doing that, and we're supposed to be emasculated. And in the media, and it's very prominent in the media. That's where we really see it the most. And what message is that sending to our young boys, right? So I want to just kind of show, and not to be super political or anything. I could care less if somebody's a Democrat or Republican or left or right or whatever. I have my opinion on things. But as a contractor, I know that 99% of the people in that workforce are going to be men. And if we don't start showing young boys that this is a cool thing to do, like this is a career for you, and this is an honorable thing to do, and go out there and work with your hands and build something, man, we're gonna be in some serious trouble in the next 10 years. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that.
What do you think was the cause for them to take shop classes out of school?
So we have this huge emphasis on becoming a service-based economy, right? So everybody needs to be a doctor. Everybody needs to be a lawyer. Now everybody needs to be a programmer and a Silicon tech person, right? And so I think from a standpoint of the public school system, they felt like they needed to address those things much more than the shop classes and the woodworking classes and the things that, would really encourage a young man to go into the trades. Just by the fact that they want more engineers, they want more doctors, they want more lawyers, they want to be a service-based economy. And this whole thing started in the 80s. And then it just really ramped up under Clinton in the 90s. And then it's just progressed. And we shipped all of our jobs overseas. And the problem is you can't ship building overseas, right? We can't build our homes in a factory in China and then have them just delivered and, like on your doorstep with an Amazon package. Somebody's got to go and build it. And because they took away all that emphasis on the building trades, we just don't have young men coming into the trades anymore.
We can't export our requirements for the building trades, but what we can do is create a demand for those building trades that is so intense that we'll have people crying for immigrants to come across this border and fill those voids for us with those external perspectives, and then give them the right to vote. But that's just my prediction.
100%. So that's exactly what's going to happen. If we can't fill this void in the next 10 years, and it's going, when that 10-year mark hits, and our 55, like my siding guy is 59. He said, I got 4 more years left in me, Mike. That's it. And I'm done. Right? He does all of my siding work. I don't hire anybody else. Now I got to go find somebody else. But he's got 30 plus years of experience. He works by himself. He doesn't even need a helper. He's so skilled. How do we replace that? right? We have a segment of people in the construction industry. Some of that segment is legal, and they do a fantastic job. They're really great to work with. I have quite a few subs in that segment. A lot of them are illegal. And the problem that you get, even if you import a lot of this labor, those guys are willing to do the job, but they don't have the 30 years of experience to do a good job. So what we find in the industry is a lot of these guys that don't have the skills but are willing to do the work because they're here illegally. Now you have to go back and fix all of their work if you're dumb enough to hire them onto your job as a GC to begin with, which I won't. But I know many GCs they feel like they're in this bind, like they have no choice. They have to give the job to them because they don't have anybody else to give it to. The problem is then they're always calling me up and saying, hey, Mike, you got somebody that can come and fix this because these guys did a terrible job and now they're just gone in the wind, nowhere to be seen. And I think that, if we cannot encourage, one thing, it starts with social media, right? And that's why we're doing the YouTube thing. And then we're also on TikTok and we're on Twitter, and we're trying to get the message out to as many of the youth platforms as we can to make building cool to young men and young women too. I'm not a sexist. If you want to be a carpenter and you're a female and you can do the job, I'll pay you the same as I will pay you a guy, as long as you can do the same amount of work. If you can't do the same amount of work, then you're not going to make as much money. So it's piece rate. So if you can go fast and do good, you'll make more money. And some women, they do a great job, but 99% of it's going to be men. So we really need to focus on the youth right now, the young boys and the teenagers, and encourage them to get into it.
What do you think stopping them, say even someone in their 20s from entering into construction and building?
I think it's a lack of awareness, to be honest with you. I mean, I go to lunch, I'll go to a Taco Bell or, McDonald's or Chipotle or whatever. How many 17, 18, 20-year-olds are working there making $13, $14 an hour? Dude, go pick up a hammer and a tool belt and go to a job site and you'll get hired like that, making $22, $23 an hour right now with zero skills. That's how much we need bodies out there learning and working. The problem that I've personally experienced, and I've given a lot of young guys chances, is they'll work for a week and then you don't see them again. That's it. They make their first check and then they're gone.
Do you think that's a pressure that's on us right now? Is building stuff it's not easy work. It's labor intensive, and you're also eating all the elements, whatever's going on.
And I think it really is just a culture shift, right? So growing up, I didn't have a choice. It was, you're not in school today, you're on the job site, right? 5 o'clock in the morning, grandpa's coming in and kicking my bed. Get up, boy, we're going to work. Get in the truck. Summer times, no, that wasn't playtime for me. That was working 6 days a week, learning how to be a carpenter. Okay. We don't do that anymore with our kids, right? If you think about it like this, how many kids get up before 7 a.m. in the United States when there's no school?
Not many,
what do you
but
think that is?
Not many. But then again, you go back. How many? Okay, one, let's go through it like this. You're a general contractor. I can almost guarantee you that you wouldn't want to see the liability of, say, your siding guy or your window guy or your painter or floor guy bringing their high school kid in onto your job site. Right?
And that's, again, that's an excellent point, is everything in construction has completely changed from when I was growing up, and definitely from my father and my grandfather's time. Because I remember going to the job sites with my grandfather and everything was a handshake. There was no contract. There was no invoice. It was, I'm going to do X amount of work for X amount of money. They shake hands, done deal, right? And no problems. And then I remember the first time I was about 12 years old, and my dad was really upset, and I didn't know why. And he told me, he explained it to me, that job that we just finished, this guy doesn't want to pay me. And I'm like, but Dad, we did the work. Everything was good. And he was like, yeah, but he doesn't want to pay me. So I don't know what to do because I don't have a contract. He's like, I'm going to have to start doing contracts. This is the second time this has happened, and that there won't be a third. Mm-hmm. And so when I became a general contractor, I already had that ingrained in me from those incidences with my father that I have to have contracts. And so I was going to job sites with my grandfather as young as 7 or 8 and just scrapping out houses for him as a little kid. And my pay was Dr. Pepper's, right? I was full blown working every single summer from the age of 12 on. And so nowadays, if you bring your 12-year-old with you to a job site, there's so much insurance liabilities now that we really didn't have to contend with when I was growing up. So that's an excellent point. How do we get away with bringing our kids, our sons, to these job sites and teaching them these valuable skills, while at the same time not incurring, bankruptcy if he gets hurt or if he causes somebody else to get hurt,
or even just a city official happens to wander by.
Yeah,
exactly.
Our society is so paralyzed with litigation at the moment that it's more profitable to not do anything than to do something.
Yeah. So I agree with that.
So we're bound out of the market of getting the kids up, but I'm wondering what the culture shift is that, and maybe it's multiple things, but that's made it so that the 20-year-old doesn't want to, you're going to earn more in construction on average than you are at any, restaurant or store or any of that. You're just going to make more. If you go work industry or construction, you're going to make more. But then again, even that making more, the good life's still priced out of your range. So why not just get a job to float? Live with mom and dad.
I think initially, yes and no. So I made a video. It was a little controversial. I got some trolls on YouTube that weren't very happy about it. But essentially, if you look at it like this, if you go to college right now and you take out a college loan, by the time you get your 4-year degree, you're $200,000 in debt.
Oh yeah,
you now have interest incurring on that debt. Now, if you're going to college to become a lawyer, a doctor, or something that the state or federal government mandates you have that degree in order to practice your career, and that career is going to be paying you $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year or more, then absolutely go ahead and spend that money. But if you're going to go get an arts degree, incur $200,000 in debt, and get out with maybe no job at all, or at best case scenario, making $45,000 or $50,000 a year, then that's a horrible move. Instead, at 18 years old, you spend those 4 years working, whatever job it's going to be, trying to obviously get the best paying job. Construction pays really well, just as one example, but there's sales positions and whatnot where you can easily make $100,000 a year as an 18-year-old, and I know several. And at the end of that 4 years, if you are very, close pocket with your money, and you don't go crazy and buying a bunch of stuff that is worthless and is just going to depreciate, but actually invest that money, save that money, by the end of that 4 years, you're now 10 years ahead of that person that got the arts degree, right?
You're right.
So the next thing is, if you get into construction as a young person right out of high school, and you work those 4 years, and you do, let's say, carpentry, is the number one that I recommend that you get into, that you can just start making money right away, and you're going to learn a ton right away. By the end of those 4 years, you now have enough money, if you're smart, to purchase a small plot of land. And guess what? You can now build your own house for a fraction of the cost of going and getting a bank loan and buying a $600,000 used house. You can build that house yourself for $200,000, and you already have that $200,000 saved up in the bank. You're 22, 23 years old. You build your own house. You're so far ahead of the game. It's insane.
You're right.
But we don't teach it like that. And that's the cultural problem. We don't teach construction like that. What we teach construction is, oh, that's blue collar. Oh, if you do blue collar, you're not going to make any money. If you do blue collar, you're not going to be rich or successful. Well, I started out not as a general contractor. I started out as a carpenter. I went through some very hard times. I overcame those hard times. I went to school to further my education in construction, got my general contractor's license, took the test, passed it, started my company with nothing, and now we're super successful. So it's all just the cultural mindset.
You're very right on all that, but again, I go back to these kids are sitting in high school, and let's face it, there's the average high school boy is thinking about two things. He's thinking about getting a little strange and getting a little drunk. And he looks at the construction site, which granted, you can still go both those things there, or he's looking at college. And he doesn't know what money is. All he knows is he signs this piece of paper. He gets to go live at this cool place where 63% of the people there are females, and there's a man desert that's beckoning him, you know. And I mean, I understand why they're making that choice. They're high school boys. They're not a very intelligent creature.
Yeah, I know I wasn't.
Yeah, and I wasn't either, you know, but, you know, and we've got to entice people into that. And I mean, it's getting college right now, unless you go into STEM. And even when you do a lot of STEM, doesn't have doesn't pay itself back.
And most of it you can get online now. That the return value is just insane.
Well, yeah, the return value if you start your own thing. That's the trick to life. If you start your own thing, you can do whatever. But college, if you're going to go to college, you better go STEM. And I mean, even like engineering, nobody even cares if you're just an engineer. If you're a mechanical engineer, you're the bottom rung of a college graduate right now. You better be a chemical or a nuclear or electrical or something, you know. They don't want a mechanical engineer because so many people are going on to pursue that there's just oodles of them out there when they want the next step specialized that gets separated from the herd.
And I really think the first thing it comes down to is the fathers teaching the sons and guiding the sons in it. And because of the cultural shift that we've had over the past 20 years, I think a lot of fathers have kind of forgotten that their role in their son's life is paramount, especially when he's going through that transition of boy to a man. And so that guidance is really, really important because a father is going to know his son's strengths and weaknesses if he's a part of his life every single day for his entire upbringing, right? So a father is going to know, yeah, my son's probably not going to be a rocket scientist, but he is strong and he can learn some stuff. Let me come to the job site and teach him how to do this, right? Or it may be, you know what, my son's not going to be a rocket scientist, but he is a talker. This kid can sell an ice cube to an Eskimo. Let me take him over to my friend who happens to own this sales company and get him an apprenticeship in sales and see how he does.
And that's a lost art. Sales makes, they have the opportunity to make as much as anyone out there.
Yeah.
And that is a lost art.
Really, sales is a talent, right? It's not, I mean, you can learn to be a pretty adequate salesman, but there are certain people who are just gifted in sales. And if your child is one of those childs, then absolutely go and you know, take them to a sales rep company and get them in there for an apprenticeship, because I tell you right now, one of my buddies owns a sales company. That's all they do. And he is always looking for somebody that is talented and could care less if they have experience or education in it. He'll tell them what they need to do because he's been doing it for 30 years. But it really is just that talent. So really it's the parent knowing their child. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Should we really put ourselves and you in this debt to send you to this university, knowing most likely you're either going to max out at an associate's degree, best case scenario, bachelor's degree, and you're just going to get a $40, $50, maybe $60,000 job a year after that? Or should we find something for you to get into now? Because I disagree, and I know, like, in our cultural shift that we've had, all the emphasis is all the kids need to go to college. Everybody needs to go to college. Well, I went to college, and you know how much of that stuff I remember as pertaining to my business? Zero. Didn't help me in my business whatsoever, and I went for a business degree, right? But it was the actual experience of running a business that taught me everything about my business. None of those textbooks taught me anything. You know, and it's kind of ridiculous because, you know, when you're getting a college degree, they set it up the way they set it up because it is an industry. So they want you to have this broad education. Well, what, as a contractor, do I need to know about Aztec history for? How is that going to help my business? Another thing is I was really bad at economics and accounting, but they make you take those classes. I have no intention of ever doing my own accounting or my own taxes. That's why I hire an accountant who's really good at that stuff, because I'm really good at building stuff. And so I think if we have more emphasis on specializations instead of this broad-based educational system, which is an industry to make more money, then I think it would be more effective to send every kid to college. But as our education, higher education system is now, the broad-based education system is a failure. Mm-hmm. Why is China able to build entire cities in 10 years? Because their education system is very pinpointed. They know from the very beginning, when you're like 6, 7 years old, you're going to be a chemical engineer. You're going to be an electrical engineer. You're going to be a mechanical engineer. You're going to be a mathematician. And that's what their focus on that child is all the way through their higher education. And so they pump out, 10 times more per capita of specialized engineers and fields than we do in America, because we spend so much time teaching our kids all this broad education. Well, that's what the internet's for now. You can get all the broad education you want in your own time, but what we need our kids to do is to be specialized and be really good at something. Now, unfortunately, our education is the jack of all trades, master of none approach.
Yeah. Well, it's a jackass of all trades and not even a jack of any.
And if you bring your kids to a construction zone nowadays, he goes back to school, starts talking about it, the teacher will probably have you processed for child abuse.
Not just that, but I mean, I promise you, Toolbreaker here is not going to let one of his subs bring a 14-year-old son on a job site, because that's nothing but a hazard. But I got 2 questions. One, is there any way that you could make movement on opening up even a branch of for 15 and older, kind of like if you live in an agricultural area, a 14-year-old can drive a tractor legally on the farm, right, and can also go work at other farms. If my dad was a farmer and I was 14, I could go work at the neighbor's farm and make a wage and learn skills and do all that. Is there any movement towards opening that up? Because how would it be if you kicked off and you could hire a crew of 14-year-olds to do the cleanup every afternoon for 2 or 3 hours, And maybe even at that, they get to come in and learn how to hang a door, or set a window, or, or even just, case in a door, or any of that. You get that going.
Here in the state of Utah, we can hire 15 and above. There are restrictions on what a 15-year-old can do versus what a 16-year-old can do. A 16-year-old can pretty much do everything that 18 and above can do. 15, we just have to watch their hours. They can't go past 20 hours a week.
Okay.
And then they're like, we can't send them up a 20-foot ladder, for example. But pretty much everything else they can do, as long as they're a W-2 employee and they're covered under either my subcontractor's insurance, which then my general liability covers everybody's insurance. One of my subs can't bring, their 12-year-old like my dad did when I was 12 anymore, just because of the insurance liability of that. I wouldn't be able to allow that. But he could bring his 15-year-old. And as long as his 15-year-old son has a W-2 with his dad, absolutely all day. Both of my boys are over 18, so I don't have to deal with that. But one day, if I have a grandchild or something, I'm taking to the job site just like my grandfather did. I don't care. But it's my company, so I can do that.
Yeah, that's
take that risk.
That's where it's your personal risk versus your business risk.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the question. Do you guys, have you guys gone out to different school fairs, like the school job fairs?
Yeah.
They've got the Army and the Marines and the Air Force standing there getting knuckleheads like me and David here to go get a job.
That's one of the goals of all the social media that we're doing, that once we build up enough support to kind of get that steam rolling going, then we do want to start hitting some junior high and some high schools, want to put together some programs and stuff like that for them.
I can't wait to see the day. I can't wait to see the day when you hear about a job fair on Tuesday, the concrete's done, so you go get the old crusty concrete guy to go stand in the job fair with his hardened up blue jeans and his heavily calloused hands, and you got to remind him every day up until that point, we're not cursing on Tuesday. We're not cursing on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because that's or better yet, a mason, because there is sailors would blush and run away from any goddamn mason, and send them in there. But those are high paying jobs.
One of the cool things that there's several YouTubers that are in the construction zone, in the tool review zone on YouTube that I really like and I admire. And one of the things that they do is they just make it look cool, and that's kind of what I want to do, is make things fun, make them look cool, attractive, and appealing, so that it doesn't scare the kids off. Because I also understand the generation that's coming up right now is not my generation, and it's certainly not my father's or my grandfather's. So there's an approach that you have to take with this new generation. My wife reminds me of this all the time. Like, you cannot talk to them the way your father talked to you or your grandfather talked to you. It's a totally different mindset. So you kind of got to walk on eggshell with them a little bit. You got to entice them. You can't be too hard on them, but at the same time, you can't be too soft. Otherwise, you just reinforce the negative behavior of being lazy and not accomplishing things. So I think there's a way that we can and start involving the youth in an entertaining, fun, cool way that they're going to like, versus bringing my 62-year-old Mason to a high school. He's not probably getting attention. But if I pull up in a C8 Corvette and say, hey guys, this is what you can get if you're a contractor. You'd be like me, you drive a really cool blue Raptor, Ford Raptor, with some beefed up shocks, and go four-wheeling and stuff, because I own this stuff because I worked for it, and I own it outright. I don't pay a note on this. You guys can do the same thing.
That's the trick. The trades are, here's just my pitch for it. It's the easiest way to start your own business.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter which trade you go down. I promise you, it's easier to start a plumbing business, a electrician business, HVAC troubleshoot and repair, furnace troubleshoot and repair, drywalling.
Oh yeah, drywall might have some demand.
It's easier to start your own business doing any of that than it would be to do anything that you're learning in college.
I mean, so just a little backstory on me and how me and my wife started ours. I went and I got my general contractor's license. I was working for a countertop company. I was a project manager. And so by getting my GC license, I was then able to be their qualifier so that they could start installing their own countertops rather than just selling them and then subbing it out so that they can make the revenue and profits both ways. So I did that. And then I went to my boss and I asked my boss, who was a great guy, but a very astute businessman. I asked him for a raise because I just brought exponential value to your company. So I should be compensated for that. Because nobody else in the company could do what I did. And so his response was, no, I'm not giving you a raise. And I was only asking for what the baseline of a project manager with my education and skills and now a general contractor's license would get at any of the big construction companies here in Utah, like Big D Construction or one of those guys, like Layton, which was $70K. And he said no. And so I said, okay. I quit. And he was like shocked. He was like, what do you mean you quit? And I was like, I quit. He was like, nobody will ever pay you $70,000. So if you quit now, you're going to be broke in a month. I was like, challenge accepted. So I left, packed my stuff. I was gone, went home, talked to my wife, told her, hey, I just quit my job. This is what happened. And so I'm going to go apply for a PM position over at Layton tomorrow. Big D, I'm going to go hit them all up. I know they're all hiring. And my wife was like, no. Why? Let's start our own business. You can build a house from the ground up with your eyes closed. What are you doing working for other people? Why do you keep working for them? You're a GC now. Act like one.
Yeah, you get people to work for you.
Yeah, with that, we went down and we started all the paperwork process and got our LLC and we got our insurance and we got our license and off we were going. And I started my company out of the back of a super room present with very little money in the bank. And we just went for it. And I got my very first job finishing out some guy's basement. Ended up making like $4 or $5 an hour because I had no idea how to bid. I had always been working for a GC or somebody else, and they told me how much I was going to get paid.
Yeah.
So I totally underbid myself on that first job, but I knocked it out of the park. And because I did such a good job, and literally, this is the thing with our youth today. They don't understand sacrifice. That first job, I worked 7 weeks straight, took one day off, and I was working 14 hours a day. Made like $4 or $5 an hour. That's it. And I've told this story before. One day I was really upset about it. And I'm like five weeks into it. I'm just exhausted. And my wife said, listen, you're not making $5 an hour. You're being paid $5 an hour to learn how to run your business. So don't look at it as a negative. It's a positive. People go to school and they pay somebody else to teach them how to run their business. They're paying you to run your business, to learn. And so we got so many referrals off of that job. So it paid for itself over the long run.
A 7 week basement.
So,
how big of a basement would it be to build a 7 week basement?
The basement was, I think 1,300 square feet. And then upstairs I had to cut through a concrete wall into a master closet, turn that master closet into a master bathroom, and then remodel the bathroom that had the concrete wall. So I did 2 bathrooms and an entire basement, did all of the labor by myself.
Yep. Yeah. And they can, if you're going from ground up from just one guy that's framing, running wire, planning it out, measuring,
going to Home Depot. going back to Home Depot?
Jesus Christ.
Like a million times. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And then that's the only thing that I didn't do, because as a GC, you cannot do electrical, HVAC, or plumbing. You can do some HVAC, but you can't do any of the mechanical HVAC. So I can run an exhaust vent, but I can't put in a furnace, right?
Yeah.
So those things did have to get subbed out, but everything else pretty much I did by myself.
Even then, to save money, I'll bet you drilled all the holes. I'll bet you may have even run the wire and just had it laying there. I mean, that's what I would have done.
Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get through.
Yeah.
It's an experience. I had never worked that hard. I thought working with my grandfather, my father, that I had like really worked hard. When you start your own business, that's when you learn hard work.
Right? Very true.
Because even today, years later, I still work 14 hours a day. I'm not swinging a hammer 14 hours a day, but I still work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. I take one day off. That's family time. No exceptions. But the rest of the time running a business, it is nonstop, pretty much until you sell the business or retire.
Well,
but it's also fun.
Even if I can lay a message on those kids, just a motivational message. If you want to work 2 days a week, start your own business, because you can work 2 days, because then you're not on someone else's schedule.
Exactly.
And you can start your own business if you want to work hard and make bang busters, or you can start your own business if you want to, sit around and watch internet all day and only work 2 days a week. But I think that's the trick. And I think that's where our society is lost in a handful of ways. One, too much power in the hands of government. We've given them too much. The bastards are needling in every part of our life, and I'm tired of that. And we've turned over all of our, I guess, general welfare. Most of our jobs now rely on corporations. There's not enough jobs outside of corporations, either small mom and pop startup numbers or your own personal business. There's too many people that work for an actual corporate structure.
And that kind of circles back to our university system. So our university system was set up in order to facilitate corporations, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you go through, for example, business school, I remember when I was going to Utah State, all my classes regarding business, I was thinking to myself, they're not teaching me how to be a businessman. They're teaching me how to work for a business. Mm-hmm. And so you don't really learn how to be an entrepreneur. And I'm not sure if there is an educational system that could be developed to teach that, because it's just one of those experiential things that you have to go through to learn. Because I thought I knew all kind of stuff, about, I went to business school, so I must know about business. And then I started one and I was like, oh God, I don't know anything. So I had to start from scratch. So that just circles back to our higher education system. They don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur. They teach you how to work for an entrepreneur.
Hey, Mike, for those that aren't familiar with what GCs are and how to become one, can you explain what a GC is and what the path is to actually become one for those young students?
Yeah, so for every state, it's going to be different. Here in Utah, they have actually loosened up the rules in the past couple of years. It used to be that you had to have 10 years of actual work experience under a GC, whether you was a carpenter or any of the trades, but you had to have had documented work history of 10 years. And then you had to pass this very difficult test that has, I think they said like 60 or 70% failure rate. And if you can pass that, then you can become a GC. Now, all you have to do is, I think they've lowered it now to where here in Utah, you only have to prove 2 years of actual work. Again, doesn't matter what trade, as long as you were working in the field. So you could have been a painter and become a GC now. But you still do have to pass that test, and that test still does have like a 60 or 70% rate. I was pretty fortunate. My entire college education, I was really good at studying for tests and passing them, and then forgetting everything like 2 weeks later. So I pretty much just applied that skill to my GC test, and I passed it the first time, and I was able to get my GC license. But I do remember when I was taking that test, I was like, man, this test really has zero to do with construction, and everything about the test was really covering all of the liabilities, the accounting, and it was more of a business test than it actually was a construction test.
Well, that's what it is. They don't expect you to know construction. They expect you to know how to formulate a contract so that that the person contracting you and the end use customer don't get harmed. And that's because they expect you to hire someone to do, the stuff they expect you to get electrician.
And that's really the role of a GC. So if you think of a football team, all right, you have all of the players out on the field, and then you have the head coach. So the GC is like the head coach. The GC is calling the shots. But the only difference is a GC can also get in and play quarterback. He can play running back. He can play wide receiver. He can play any position he wants, except for the 3 technical ones, which is the plumbing, electrical, and the mechanical. For that, he has to sub it out unless he also carries those endorsements, in which case then he can do it. So then when you think of a general contractor, and there's a debate whether or not homeowners should do their builds themselves and be their own GCs or hire a GC. And there's this misconception that if you hire a GC, you're going to spend more money. More times than not, that it's the opposite. And here's why. A general contractor has the relationships with all of the subs. And because of these relationships, he's able to get cheaper prices out of them for their labor than any homeowner ever would. And a perfect example is a lady needed some drywall done. And so she called me up. She'd already had 2 drywall companies come and give her bids. I went in and gave her bid, and my bid was like $3,000 or $4,000 less than the 2 drywall companies. Why is that? Because my drywall guy gives me a price, and those drywall companies gave her the homeowner price, which is like 50% more than they would ever give a GC, because I know how much stuff costs. They see the homeowner and says, well, she doesn't know how much it costs, so I'm going to charge her $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 for this, right?
Yeah.
So GCs can get cheaper prices on average. Now, some GCs will just give ridiculous prices, and usually they don't last very long if they're going to be doing that, because yes, you need to make a profit, but you also need to win the bids, right? So you got to be in that sweet spot.
And as a general contractor, you can be, once you get going and you have a good rating, you can be contract out on 7-8 jobs at a time, making a small percentage off each.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's what we call in the industry a paper tiger. Right. And so that's kind of where my company has moved to now. I do get out there, and if I have to get in and go fix something or do something, instead of waiting on, one of my subs schedules, I'll just go and do it myself. It's faster. I need to keep this job moving. We'll just go. But that's always the end goal of any GC, is to become a paper tiger so that you have the relationships. I got dedicated flooring guys. I have dedicated painters. I have a fantastic electrician. I have a plumber company. My HVAC guy is amazing. He does all my work. My siding guy, my stucco guy. So over the years, I've developed all these. But when I started, I wore all the hats. I was the flooring guy. I was the drywall guy. I was the framer. I was doing the finished carpentry. I was the painter. I did everything. And sometimes you have to start out that way, especially if you don't have money to begin with. And it's really, I grew up with my grandfather doing mostly carpentry, and as well with my dad. But I wasn't an experienced painter. That's one thing that we never really did a lot of. But when I started my company, I had to learn, because I couldn't afford to hire a painter to come do my jobs. So I had to do it. And so fortunately we did have YouTube. So I learned a lot off of that. And I actually got really, really good at painting. And I did one painting job that led to 3 more painting jobs. And it's all referrals. We don't do any advertising for our company. From the beginning, our company has been referrals. So that's what I would say, to answer your question. A GC is basically like the head coach of a football team. But he also needs to get in there and get his hands dirty, especially in the beginning.
He's what a general contractor does is he initiates the customer initiates contact with him. He goes in, looks at the overall job, kind of makes a plan in his head, and then he finds people or commits himself to completing the different tasks of that job. So,
right.
You'll find an electrician, but you may have a crew of 3 guys that's good at, say flooring or whatever that you go and do, but you find other people to fill in the different holes.
Yeah, exactly. And, every GC is different, right? And it kind of just depends on what their business model is and how they want their business model to be. So you have some GCs that have full crew and they do everything. They don't sub anything out. Right.
Yep.
And then you have other GCs that are just pure paper tigers. The big contractors out there like Leighton, they have project managers, but everything else is subcontracted.
Yep.
Big D does the same thing. And
they're mostly transportation companies anymore.
Yeah.
We bring in drywall and iron, and we have other people that put it up.
Right. And it's just a matter of managing. So
I know a lot of
I really had to transition, and this was tough for me in the beginning, was to trust somebody else to do a job on one of my projects, because I'm very particular about the quality on my jobs, as well as getting them done quickly for the client. And so it was difficult. I went through different plumbers. I went through different electricians, different HVAC guys, different framers. And I had to go through all of these different subs. And a lot of times I had to go and fix stuff until I found the quality ones who were both affordable, reliable, and super skilled. And so now we're at that point where we have that core group of subcontractors. They're almost like they're my employees, because they get all of my jobs. I don't even ask for bids from anybody else, because I already know their prices, and I'm able to bid my jobs based off of my knowledge of their prices. And that's kind of the ultimate goal of any general contractor, is to get to that point. Unless you want to be an in-house general contractor and have 30 employees. The problem with that is if you don't have, let's say, an investor that puts a couple $1 million into your company, when you have slowdowns, which we always do in construction, you have 30 employees with benefits, with wages, and you have to either make the hard decision of start laying people off, cutting back, their hours, or just eating it and hoping that you'll be able to ride out the storm and potentially bankrupting your company. So we didn't want to go down that route. We wanted to go the paper tiger route. It's the most effective for us. It allows us to stay nimble in the industry. And our prices are competitive with any of the in-house guys, and I don't have all that overhead that I have to worry about.
Yeah. So, all right, before we close out, we're coming up on an hour. Your YouTube show is called The Tool Breaker. And as a guy who works in industry myself, I watch copious amounts of YouTube video. Matter of fact, before I do any job, even if it's a job I did just last week, I go and search out a YouTube. I usually go through about 3 or 4 YouTube videos of it just to see if someone else has a different idea that I don't know about yet. I mean, it's just, you're sitting there, spend an hour through the weekend researching the job coming up. You might find a different painting practice or a different drywall practice, or flooring is a big one. Flooring, especially when you're doing those laminate or hardwood floors, guys are coming up with different tips and tricks on how to do that every day, I swear. But
I mean, when I started my company, I would come home after working 12 to 14 hours, dog tired, and I would turn on YouTube and watch 3 hours of tips and tricks on painting, finished carpentry, everything. And my wife was like, "You just worked 14 hours. Why are you watching all this?" I says, "Because there's always room for improvement."
And it might save you an hour tomorrow.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to a YouTuber out there that really helped me learn the painting trade and really become an expert level with it. And it's the Idaho Painter. Check it out on YouTube. His channel is so informational. If you're, I don't care if you're painting cabinets or if you're painting a house, interior, exterior, he has videos for everything. He breaks it down in such an easy to understand method. I probably consumed 100 of his videos over the past several years. Really, really helpful. And that's, with the Toolbreaker channel, that's just really what we want to do. We just want to be another voice contributing to all these great guys out there, making this content, making it look cool, and showing people that, yes, one last note before we go, I will just say this. I had an iPhone 6 all the way until iPhone 12 came out. I didn't buy a new phone in between. Finally, they were going to cut off iPhone 6. So I had to go buy this new phone. Bought the iPhone 12. Got rid of the iPhone 6. Do I ever think about the iPhone 6? Nope, couldn't care about it. It was just, a piece of plastic in the screen. But I did some Shishuki-bon wood burning with my wife 3 years ago. And those shelves mean so much and have so much fond memories because it was the first time my wife had ever done something like that with me, that they're like gold. And it was just reclaimed wood that we got from some guy off of Facebook Marketplace for free. So I would say get out there, build something with your hands, make something, and stop being so materialistic with this plastic and stuff that everybody's trying to sell us.
Well,
it's
I wanted to ask you a question. I was leading up to tradesmen watch other tradesmen YouTube. Dave is a safety guy. Don't crunch your face up yet, but
safety first.
He probably watches safety guy YouTube, which is probably like sniffing glue and pulling your fingernails out with some dikes. But, so what are you doing? What are you going to do different? Or what could you do different? What ideas do you have to draw high school age men and women in? I mean, maybe get a YouTube that's cool. Like, hey, do you guys want a Saturday project that you can, build what was the big thing that I'm sure you did when you were young with your grandfather? I did with mine was we built the toolbox, the notorious toolbox. It's 5 pieces of wood and a long, dowel. Everyone built that. Everyone has one. I mean, half the time when you walk onto an old diesel mechanic site, he's still got this old wooden toolbox that he carries his, gotta have tools with him around in. What ideas do you have to draw in the high school age?
Well,
kids?
I think, so with our channel it's twofold. One, there's a business side of YouTube, right? So you if you're doing YouTube at all, you need to think of it as a business and run it like a business, because if you don't, you'll eventually just burn out and you'll have to make money somewhere else, and so you won't make enough content. So really, YouTube is kind of my getting close to retirement plan, something that I can continue to do, when I'm in my 80s, 90s, maybe, giving tips and tricks. In the very beginning, though, the biggest emphasis is on getting the younger generation encouraged and excited about construction. And so we're just trying right now to figure out how do we do that. I think one of the ways that we're going to incorporate with that, and we've kind of started, is incorporating the lifestyle that you can have as a contractor, especially if you become a general contractor. Because the youth are all about lifestyle now. Well, how do I get rich? How do I make money? How do I have a nice car? How do I have a nice truck? Let me show you. I have a really nice truck. I have really nice cars. I have a really nice house. I own property. I get to go four-wheeling. I get to go sand duning. I get to go swimming. I get to do it, whatever I want to do. I have the money to do it. I have the freedom to do it, and you don't. So following my footsteps, become a contractor, get into the trades, and you can have this lifestyle too. At the same time, it's one of the things that I as a contractor always was annoyed with is I go and buy a tool, and then there's another tool that does a better job. But I didn't look at a review, I didn't have time, or there wasn't a review on it. So I also love tools. I'm obsessed with tools. I have a mild tool addiction. So giving reviews on tools, particularly because I'm not being paid by the companies to give a review, so I can give an honest review. And all of my tools that I give reviews on are actual tools I've used in the field for at least 12 months, most of them 2 or 3 years. And so that really is towards my brothers out there in the contracting world. Hey, here's an honest review. I love Milwaukee, but does Milwaukee do everything good? No. Here's some bad points about this one, this one, and this one, and this one for you guys, keep into consideration before you purchase this tool. I also have DeWalt tools. I started my company off with them, so I give reviews on those. I want to give reviews on Makita, which I've never used, but I'm really excited to start doing that now that I've started the YouTube channel. Start reviewing all different types of tools and stuff, so that people don't spend money and then regret it, right? They get a quality tool because there was some honest reviews on it. So that's kind of twofold. Look at the youth. How can I inspire them? Even if it's just one guy. If I don't do anything, I don't make any money on YouTube, I don't care. I have a business already. But if I inspire one young kid to get into construction and he makes a good life for himself, then, I've been successful. So that, and give some good tool reviews.
There's one guy on YouTube I like to watch that he does cheap tool reviews, all just like Hart and Black and Decker and that, but he does tool reviews to failure and fire. So he does a review where he sets up this drill. He puts the drill on a mechanical system that it's going to just do a hard drill until it burns up. So he's not holding it. He's probably hiding somewhere. And I think those ones are great. I mean, DeWalt is probably if you're in the trades, that's your standard startup tool, and then you move on to Milwaukee and Makita.
I think so in the YouTube space, in the tool realm of reviews, there's really two camps. There's the testers, and they set up all these different rigs, and they'll run these tools into the ground until they break. And then there's the guys like Vince from VCG Construction, who just shows all you the brand new stuff that's coming out. And I've noticed that there's really not an in-between. There's not a tool review of a tool that's actually been used in the field. It's either basically in a lab setting, or it's just right out of the box, brand new. Here's the specs and why you should buy it, and my links in the description. And so I think kind of what makes us a little bit different is each and every tool that I review is one that I've actually used in the field for quite some time, so I can give an actual honest opinion. Is this thing worth the $299, or is it just a piece of junk and I regret buying it, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where I think my niche is I'm in the middle of those two camps on the tool reviews.
Yeah, my favorite tool videos are table saw safety tool videos. There's nothing like someone trying to demonstrate safety in their own garage with a table saw. I tell you what, it gives you that pucker factor
with the auto brake on it. That auto brake is amazing stuff.
Dude, you gotta watch my caveman blooper shorts video where I'm showing how to use a speed square, to use a skill saw to cut a straight line on a 2x4, and my battery dies out right in the middle of the cut.
Oh, nice. Great advertising.
I'm making a funny little skit, and I'm just, and it just dies.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it doesn't look very safe.
No, well,
It seldom ever does it?
yeah, I don't know. I use a table saw every once in a while, but I don't know. I've got a buddy who lost a couple fingers to table saws, and there's never a time I don't kick it on when I don't think about, okay,
I don't want to be like
what
him.
am I going to do? It put him down for a long time. Okay. We got a question here, says, from Utah Patriot, says mentorship like HD offers or did free classes. I would like to, I don't know if you're still on there.
What is HD?
HD, like Harley Davidson maybe offers mentorship. Well, that's the cool thing about the trades is, especially carpentry, like you said earlier, you can show up to a job site and they might run you through a day or two of testing, but they'll find a niche for you, even if you're just good enough for the broom.
Right now, anybody that wants to get into the trades, literally, and especially if you're out here in Utah, there's building going on. Even though the new construction has slowed down because of the interest rates, there's still building going everywhere. And all of my other GC buddies are saying the same thing. We need more labor. So just show up. Just show up. That's it.
They'll get you. You may start out pushing a broom, and every once in a while, the guy might yell down, I need a 53 3/4 inch, 2x4 cut.
Yeah.
And that's where you'll get your start. But if you're looking for a trade, like you said, sometimes it's not dependable work, but it gets your foot in that door to break off and do your own thing.
Yeah. When I was in the plumbers union, my job was to go get coffee.
And that may be where you start,
That's it happens.
Yeah. Usually, especially in the carpentry world, you start out, you're a gopher. Go for this, go for that.
Go for it. Yeah.
Grab this, go grab that, go cut this, go bring that.
While I put my tools away, I need you to sweep this up, and then we're going to head out,
Yeah.
But eventually they'll need 3 hands on a cut, and you'll show up for the third hand. And then they might even say, okay, grab that saw and cut this for me. And then they might, build up to, hey, I need you to cut these runners. And you might cut runners and run all the runners while they've got the big work done.
Exactly.
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, you definitely, again, unless you like standing around stocking shelves at Walmart or making burritos at Taco Bell, just show up to a job site, any job site. You'll get a job immediately, guaranteed.
Yep. He mentioned it's Home Depot. One of my team members just got laid off and was a rain gutter guy. So you had a team member, it's Utah Patriots again, had a friend that got laid off and hung rain gutters. If you have an avenue for him, we'll put Toolbreaker's information in the show notes so that you can reach out personally. If he doesn't have a rain gutter guy on his crew, he might know a rain gutter, the guy who does siding. That's what I was just going to say is hit me up, thetoolbreaker@gmail.com. Send me his info, and I could definitely give him some leads on who to call to get a job for sure. Yeah. I'm putting this in the show notes.
The Toolbreaker at
gmail.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then check out the YouTube channel. It also has our contact info in there. That's YouTube at Toolbreaker. So just at Toolbreaker.
Okay.
Take you straight to the channel. For sure. Anybody that's looking for a job, just hit me up. So like I said, we've moved to that paper contractors. So everything is, subcontractors, but all of my subcontractors they're always asking me for extra hands if I know anybody. So for sure.
Seriously, especially where you said you got this siding guy that's out and within the next 10 years. You get a guy tied on with him that'll start doing siding and pick up tricks for the next 10 years. You know, that guy's got a career.
Don't let that information slip away. I mean, those trades, once that information's lost, it's almost like a culture just gone.
Yeah. And it's the biggest issue that we have now. If you go look at a lot of these new home construction, the GCs that do new construction, they are really struggling with quality control. And it's because they're having to hire people that don't have that 20, 30 years of experience. You know, they went and they worked for a carpenter for 6 months, and then they went to a different GC and said, "Hey, I want to make more money, so I'll just subcontract myself straight to you." And then the quality is terrible. So we definitely want more people to team up with those guys who have that 15 to 30 years of experience and learn from them, and not from some guy with 6 months experience.
Yeah. Well, even if you get a guy with 5 years experience, is a vast difference between 5 years and 6 months or 1 year or gopher or any of that. All right. Well, Toolbreaker, thanks for coming on. Again, everyone, check out his YouTube channel. You know, if you got someone, you know, looking for a job, this is a way to go. If you know a general contractor, reach out to them and say, "Hey, do you know anyone who's hiring for this?" And he might say, "I got a plumber that's hiring," but I'll tell you what, there's probably not a better job than new home plumbing, because there ain't no shit in that.
Yeah.
But you don't make
sometimes you have to dig trenches.
Well, yeah, you know, sure, operating a shovel, there's, you know, but you make more money if you're in emergency plumbing.
I will say this, early, you know, I was in my 20s and I was framing houses, and I did have a plumber buddy, and he was like, "Man, you're so smart. You should just become a plumber. You'll make more money." And I was like, "Yeah, but as a carpenter, I don't ever have to put my hands in your crap. So I'm good." And so fortunately, I later became a general contractor, so I was able to make more money. So that definitely electricians, HVAC guys, plumbers. If you're not going to be a GC, if you're going to get into the specialties, that's definitely the way to go. That's top dollar.
Yep.
And then just, you know, in leading yourself up to becoming a GC is be a carpenter. Start out as a carpenter, because as a carpenter, you're going to have to do everything. You're going to learn everything. And to be a GC, an effective GC, you really need to be well versed in the foundation to the roof.
Yeah.
And then the technicals, I just let my electrician, plumber, and HVAC guy take care of that stuff. That's their specialty. I don't have to worry about it. But everything else, I have a really good understanding of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I'll tell you what, if you want to never be out of work, become an electrician or a plumber. Yep. Those are
because there's always a clogged toilet.
Yep. And it doesn't matter what's being built, because they might build a building that isn't getting drywall, but it's getting a shitter.
The other thing too is, the more well-versed that you can get in the industry, you can even just go out so easy, become a handyman. And I know handymen who make $70,000, $80,000 a year or more, right? Yep. Because they're charging $75 an hour.
75?
Easy.
75.
Oh, you're under.
Is the going rate on a handyman right now, right here in Utah.
Yeah, easy. That's an easy going rate. I am a handyman, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's perfect. Like, obviously, you don't have to have as much skill to, you know, you're not building an entire house, but
nope.
Hey, some old lady needs you to come and put some shelves up, right? $75 an hour.
God, I wish I got. I do. I'm tied in with some of the insurance restoration companies, so I do a lot of their work. I go in and I do drywall and paint and remediation, you know, which is fine. I enjoy it. It pays pretty good. And again, I'm 47 years old, so I get to kind of work the hours I want to work now.
Right.
And I like it.
Yep. That's what it's all about.
Yep. Yep.
Enjoy your work and enjoy your life. Because at the end of the day, work is a necessity, but life is much bigger.
Yeah, I want to work to live, not live to work.
Right.
Yep.
But when you're starting out,
yeah,
unfortunately, it's the opposite. As you're building a company, so anybody that's going to go into construction and become a general contractor, or start a plumbing company, electrical company, yeah, you're gonna work like crazy for at least the first 2 years, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you get over that hump, then it's like, okay, hey, you know what? Let's go on vacation for 2 weeks.
Well, and that's another thing. When I go on vacation, I just say, okay, I'm taking these 2 weeks off. I don't have to check with the boss. I just have to let anyone that wants to hire me know I'm not available for these 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, and this is my first year doing it. Well, okay, I did it when I was down in Nevada about 20 years ago. I was a handyman for a year and a half. But I grew up around, my grandfather owned apartments. So I grew up learning these trades, maintaining apartments and building stuff.
Yeah.
And then I did work in construction for a little while. Most of my time's been spent in heavy industry or manufacturing and stuff, but you learn it, and it's not bad. It's good work. Again, you just got to be ready to deal with the elements, but hey, it's a small price to pay for a little taste of freedom and independence.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people go pay money to go jump in a frozen river. You get paid to go out and stand on a frozen roof. So
yeah.
Think of it, cup half full instead of half empty.
That's right. But when the weather's crap, you get up the rate a little bit too, because everyone else is. And when you work for yourself, I mean, you've got to meet the margin of supply and demand.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. All right. Well, everyone, again, Toolbreaker, go check his YouTube out. If you've got anyone that could use a job, what county are you in?
Most of our jobs are in Salt Lake County.
Okay, so if you got anyone looking in Salt Lake County where most of his jobs are there, reach out to him. Maybe he can help you find a little niche to fill, and help everyone out. And I look forward to seeing you figure out how to bring the high school kids into the YouTube watching and getting engaged with the trades.
Absolutely. That's the goal. We're gonna keep plugging on it. It's a process, but we're excited about it. My wife's involved. I got my oldest daughter has just joined the company, and so she's taken over all our social media posting and stuff. And then my son-in-law doing a lot of the video editing and stuff. So we're put a nice team together, and hopefully it's gonna have some impact.
Good.
Well, go check him out. Just watch some videos on how to use a tool and get involved with the trades. I think that's going to be the future of our next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without any choice.
That are robots. All right, man. You have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you later.
Right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody that's watched, and y'all have a good night.